19 heartbeats. That was the margin between survival and extinction. 19 fragile lives that the world had already decided were disposable. And on the night of December 24th, while the rest of the world slept in warmth and denial, one woman chose to defy that verdict. The Yukon Deadlands don't forgive mistakes. The ice there isn't smooth, it's jagged, broken, sharp enough to tear flesh and bone. Across that frozen wasteland, a lone figure dragged a makeshift sled through screaming wind and darkness. Her breath burned in her lungs. Blood soaked into the snow from a fresh bite mark on her shoulder. She wasn't an alpha. She wasn't a warrior. She was a rejected Omega, carrying a burden powerful enough to bring a kingdom to its knees. Most wolves don't survive an hour in the Deadlands. Elizabeth survived 3 days. And when the Alpha King finally tracked her scent through the ice, what he found wasn't just a trespasser. It was a miracle. But Elizabeth O'Connell's fall from grace didn't begin in the wilderness. It began under harsh fluorescent lights, in a sterilized hallway of the Silver Creek Pack Infirmary, right beside a vending machine that never stopped humming. It was 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Eliza, Elizabeth to official records, Eliza to everyone who mattered, wiped her aching hands against her scrub top. She had just finished a 14-hour shift, delivering a breech pup for the beta female. Her lower back screamed in protest, and her wolf, a scruffy, russet-colored thing, whined softly in the back of her mind, begging for rest. Exhausted but focused, Eliza pushed open the door to the Alpha's office. She didn't knock. She didn't need to. She was the pack matron. And more importantly, she believed she was Alpha Grayson Rogg's fated mate. Grayson, the budget for the neonatal. She froze. Grayson wasn't seated behind his desk. He wasn't reviewing reports or balancing numbers. He was pressed against the polished mahogany surface, his lips locked with Taz. Ha Miller, the pack's lead tracker. Tasha's legs were wrapped around his waist. Her perfectly manicured claws dug into the leather of his jacket. The smell hit Eliza a heartbeat later. Musk. Betrayal. And something sharper, something broken. Grayson pulled away first. Not in panic. Not in guilt. In irritation. He smoothed his dark hair, amber eyes, once warm, once hers, now cold as Alaskan permafrost. You really should knock, Elizabeth, he said flatly. Eliza's fingers trembled around the clipboard. I'm your mate, she whispered. We're supposed to take the vows next month. Change of plans, Tasha said, smirking as she slid off the desk. She adjusted her tight tactical vest with deliberate confidence. The pack needs strength. Winter's coming. Grayson needs a Luna who can hunt, fight, and breed strong warriors. Her gaze swept over Eliza with open contempt. Not a glorified nursemaid. Grayson stepped closer, stopping just inches away. He didn't touch her. The elders and I discussed it, he said calmly. Your wolf is too submissive. You're an Omega by nature, Eliza. I need an alpha female. He reached out and ripped the clipboard from her hands. As of tonight, our mating bond is rejected. Your rank is stripped. You'll stay in the basement if you wish, cleaning the infirmary. But Tasha is Luna now. The pain didn't feel poetic. It didn't feel like heartbreak. It felt like being punched straight through the gut. Eliza gasped and doubled over, her wolf howling in agony inside her mind. But neither Grayson nor Tasha moved to help. Get out, Grayson said. And don't make a scene. It's pathetic. Blinded by tears, Eliza stumbled into the hallway. She didn't go to the basement. Instinct carried her somewhere else, somewhere safer. The pack orphanage and nursery. The place where unwanted things were kept. It was a grim concrete building on the edge of the compound, drafty and underfunded. Inside, rows of cribs and cots held the pack's most vulnerable. But tonight, Omething was wrong. The air was frantic. Mrs. Higgins, the elderly human caretaker, was shoving formula cans into a duffel bag with shaking hands. She looked up, face pale with fear. Eliza. Thank God. You heard, the woman whispered harshly. You heard what that monster's doing? He rejected me, Eliza muttered, leaning against the doorframe. No, not that, Mrs. Higgins snapped. She shoved a paper into Eliza's hands. This. The memo was official. Signed by Grayson and Tasha. Dated for sunrise. Subject, resource allocation. Due to the predicted severity of winter and shortage of elk, the Pack Council has authorized the termination of non-essential dependents. Specifically, the Runt Ward and unclaimed orphans in Wing B. Total subjects, 19. Eliza read it twice. Termination. They're going to cull them, Mrs. Higgins sobbed. 19 babies. Toddlers. The ones with twisted paws. The ones who haven't shifted yet. The ones whose parents died owing the pack money. Eliza's gaze drifted to the nearest crib. Toby. 3 years old. A limp in his leg. A smile bright enough to light the room. Beside him, the twins, 6 months old, abandoned at the border. The pain from the rejection vanished, replaced by something colder. Sharper. Rage. Grayson didn't just want a new Luna. He was purging the weak to build a prettier pack. Where's the transport van? Eliza asked. In the garage, but it's empty, Mrs. Higgins cried. I have fuel in the shed. Eliza grabbed a tactical backpack from the emergency locker. She wasn't an alpha. She wasn't a warrior. She was a nurse. And nurses didn't let their patients die. Pack them up, Eliza ordered, her Omega submission burning away into something fierce. Everything warm. All the layers we have. Eliza, Mrs. Higgins whispered. Where will you go? It's 40 below. The storm's already coming. Eliza looked toward the window as the first snow slammed against the glass. We're going to the Deadlands, she said quietly. We're crossing into the Obsidian Crown. Mrs. Higgins gasped. King Davis kills trespassers. Better the monster we don't know, Eliza said, lifting Toby into her arms, than the one we do. It took 40 minutes to load 19 children into the rusted Ford Transit van. And then, they disappeared into the storm. The night didn't begin as a rescue. It began as a nightmare that refused to end. The oldest child was 7. The youngest was barely 3 weeks old. Eliza moved with cold, mechanical focus, the kind that only appears when panic has nowhere else to go. She raided the infirmary in silence, sweeping sedatives into her pockets. Nothing strong. Just enough to quiet crying, enough to keep 19 tiny voices from echoing through concrete halls and alerting the centuries who owned this place. She stripped the supply rooms bare. Every blanket. Every heater packet. Every canister of powdered milk. Her arms ached, but she didn't slow down. Then she stopped in front of Mrs. Higgins. You can't come, Eliza said firmly. You're human. If the van dies, the cold will kill you. I'm not letting you go alone, the old woman snapped back, fear and stubborn love tangled in her voice. Eliza stepped closer and gripped her shoulder. Hard. Desperate. I need you here, she whispered. Delay them. Tell them I went south. Say I broke after the rejection and stole the van. Lie for me, Martha. Mrs. Higgins' mouth trembled. Then she nodded, tears shining as she backed away into the shadows. Eliza turned the key. The engine sputtered. Coughed. Then roared to life. She drove with the headlights off, trusting the pale moonlight reflecting off endless snow. She avoided the main gate. She knew Old Man Miller always fell asleep after 0200 hours. Instead, she aimed for a rusted section of perimeter fence she'd logged months ago for repairs that never came. Metal groaned. The fence bent. They were out. But freedom in the Yukon is a cruel joke. By 0400, the storm swallowed the world. A full whiteout. The road vanished beneath 3 feet of drifting snow. The Ford Transit's heater groaned, rattled, and died. An hour later, black ice sent the van spinning. Metal screamed as it slammed into a pine tree. Eliza's head cracked forward. Blood slid into her eye as she gasped for air. Check the kids, she wheezed, ripping off her belt. Miraculously, the blankets and low speed had saved them. There were wails and screams, but no broken bones. The van, though, was finished. Steam hissed from the radiator, rising into the air like a signal flare. And someone was listening. Eliza stepped into the wind and breathed in deep. Pine. Ice. And beneath it, Diesel and Wolf's Bane. Grayson's enforcers. 5 miles back. Snowmobiles. She opened the rear doors. 19 faces stared up at her, wide-eyed and shaking. Okay, she said, her voice cracking. Everyone out. We have to walk. I can't walk, whispered Leo, his small foot twisted beneath him. I know, baby, Eliza said softly. We're playing a game. She spread a heavy-duty tarp across the snow. Blankets went on first. Big kids in the middle. Babies tucked into coats, pressed against warm chests. We're making a train, she told them. She bundled them together like puppies, tied the tarp's grommets with a thick tow rope, and looped the other end around her waist. Then she shifted. Not fully. Her nails stretched into claws for grip. Muscles surged, tearing the seams of her scrub top. Her eyes burned gold. She was an Omega. Not built for power. Built for endurance. She leaned forward. The tarp didn't move. Move, she screamed inside her head. Move or they die. She roared, a raw, tearing sound, and pulled. An inch. Another. Then a foot. She dragged them north, toward the mountains marking the Obsidian Crown's border. 6 hours of agony. Wind flaying her skin. Rope carving a bloody groove into her waist. The snowmobiles were getting closer. One of the babies, Timothy, started turning blue. Don't sleep. Eliza barked. Sing. Sing the pack anthem. Their tiny voices vanished beneath the howling wind. Her legs shook. She crossed the neutral strip. Ahead, the dark forest. Alpha territory. A shot cracked the air. The bullet sliced past her ear and buried itself in a tree. 3 snowmobiles crested the hill. Tasha rode shotgun, rifle raised. End of the line, nursemaid, she screamed. The border pillars were only 50 yards away. Hold on. Eliza screamed. She ran. Bang. The bullet tore through her calf. She collapsed, screaming as snow bloomed red beneath her. Got her. Tasha laughed. Eliza crawled. Hands bleeding. Pulling the rope inch by inch. 10 feet. Tasha stepped off her bike and crushed Eliza's wounded leg beneath her boot. Pathetic, she spat. You think the Obsidian King would spare them? The rifle rose. Say goodbye, Omega. Eliza closed her eyes and shielded the children with her body. Then the ground growled. Not a wolf. Not anything normal. The sound shook the trees. Tasha froze. From the dark forest, beyond the obsidian pillars, something moved. Out of the swirling white void, a shape took form. At first, it was only a shadow, then it stepped closer, and the world seemed to shrink around it. The figure was enormous, easily 7 feet tall, wrapped in a black fur cloak so dense it swallowed the weak light of the storm. At his sides padded 2 wolves, each as large as a pony, their breath steaming, their eyes glowing a deep, unnatural red. The ground itself felt different as he crossed the borderline. His gaze swept the scene slowly, first Tasha with her raised weapon, then the wounded woman bleeding into the snow, and finally the heap of 19 trembling children huddled beneath the tarp. When he spoke, the sound was low and crushing, like stone grinding against stone. You are hunting on my land. There was no mistaking him. This was Davis Sterling. The Alpha King. Tasha's grip failed her. The gun dipped as her hands began to shake. King Davis, this woman is a thief F. From the Silver Creek pack, she stammered. She stole our livestock. We're only retrieving what's ours. Davis's eyes of black, endless, shifted to Eliza. She lay in the snow, blood darkening her hair, her fingers still clenched around the rope binding the children together. Slowly, painfully, she lifted her head to look at him. It was an act of open defiance, one that often ended in death. Is this true? Davis asked calmly. Did you steal livestock? Eliza coughed, blood spraying against the white snow. Still, she held his gaze. They aren't livestock, she rasped, every word burning. They're children. And I didn't steal them. I saved them. Davis turned his attention to the tarp. A tiny hand poked out from beneath it, wrapped in a mitten made from a cut sock. Silence fell. The king looked back at Tasha. You shot a woman carrying children. She's a traitor. Tasha shrieked, panic cracking her voice. Give her to us. Davis stepped forward once. That single step crushed the air itself. The force of his presence slammed into Tasha, driving her to her knees. Around her, the Silver Creek enforcers whimpered, their courage evaporating as they dropped their weapons into the snow. The law of the Obsidian Crown is simple, Davis said evenly. Anything that crosses my border belongs to me. His gaze dropped to Eliza. She crossed the line. She is mine now. Then, to the tarp. The children are mine. You can't do that. Tasha screamed. Davis leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a whisper meant only for her. Run. She froze. Before I decide otherwise, he added, I'll also be taking your snowmobiles. That was enough. Tasha scrambled backward, terror overtaking her pride. She waved frantically at her men, and they fled into the blinding whiteout, disappearing as fast as fear could carry them. Eliza watched them go as the last of her adrenaline drained away. The world blurred. Darkness crept in at the edges of her vision as a massive shadow fell over her. She tried to speak, to beg him not to hurt the children, but her body betrayed her. The last thing she felt was a pair of strong, burning hot hands lifting her from the snow, and a deep, stunned voice muttering. Non, how in the hell? Then everything went black. Eliza woke to warmth. The crackle of burning wood. The sharp, sterile bite of antiseptic. Panic surged through her as she thrashed instinctively, reaching for the rope. Easy, Wolf, a voice warned. You'll rip your stitches. Her eyes flew open. This wasn't a dungeon. She lay in a vast stone chamber on a bed so soft it felt unreal. A massive hearth roared nearby, flames licking high enough to roast an elk whole. Pain pulsed through her leg as she pushed herself upright. The kids, she gasped. Where are the kids? A man sat calmly in a velvet armchair across the room. Sharp cheekbones. Messy black hair. Dark eyes that tracked her every move. His fitted gray tactical shirt strained against his broad chest. Alpha King Davis, she breathed. He took a slow sip from a crystal tumbler before answering. They are loud, he said. Very loud. Are they alive? Eliza demanded, swinging her legs off the bed. They are being fed, Davis replied. My kitchen staff is currently panicking while trying to find enough oatmeal for 19 mouths. Relief hit her so hard her knees nearly buckled. You dragged 700 pounds for 12 miles through a blizzard, Davis continued, setting the glass aside. With a bullet in your leg. I had to, Eliza said, testing her weight. Pain flared, but she stood. I need to see them. You'll answer my questions first. He rose. The room seemed to shrink as he approached. He was overwhelming, pure, contained power. Silver Creek claims you stole them, he said. You say you saved them. My spies say Silver Creek is low on resources. So tell me, Why would an Omega risk death for children that aren't hers? Because they were going to kill them, Eliza snapped, her voice shaking with rage. Grayson, Alpha Rock, ordered a cull. Called them runts. Said it would save money. The air grew heavier. A cull of pups, Davis repeated. Read the order. She pointed weakly to her shredded backpack. I kept it. Davis retrieved the bloodstained paper and read in silence. His jaw tightened. The page crumpled in his fist. He signed this, he asked quietly. Him. And his mistress. Davis tossed the paper into the fire and watched it burn. You trespassed on my land, Elizabeth O'Connell, he said at last. The penalty is death. Eliza swallowed. Then kill me, she said. But let the kids stay. They can work. They can. I'm not going to kill you. He stopped inches from her. He smelled of cedar and rain. You possess strength I don't see in my elite warriors, he said. An alpha fights for power. You fought for survival. His thumb brushed her chin, lifting her face. But we have a problem. 19 undocumented pups. That's a small pack. He hesitated. And among them, my healers found something interesting. Eliza's heart seized. What? One of the boys, Davis said. The one with the club foot. Leo, she whispered. He carries the royal marker, Davis said. He is my brother's son. My nephew. The child stolen during the border wars. Eliza gasped. But he was found near the highway. It seems Silver Creek has been hiding more than budget cuts, Davis growled. You didn't bring me refugees, Elizabeth. He met her eyes. You brought me my heir. The door burst open. A harried wolf in a chef's hat panted in the doorway. Your Majesty, please, the little ones won't eat. They're throwing bowls. They're screaming for Mama Eliza. Eliza had spent her whole life being afraid of men like him. Davis glanced at the chef still frozen in place, then slowly turned his attention back to Eliza. For the first time since she'd met him, the hard edge of his expression cracked. Just barely. The corner of his mouth tilted upward, not a smile, but something close. It seems, Eli. Zabeth, he said evenly, that you are not a prisoner. His gaze sharpened. You are a hostage of your own making. He motioned toward the door with a casual flick of his fingers. Shall we? My kitchen is currently under siege. As Eliza followed him, it finally sank in. Her life hadn't ended in the snow that night. It had simply become infinitely more complicated. She wasn't just a rejected Omega anymore. She was the guardian of a king's heir. And the only person alive capable of controlling 19 traumatized werewolf pups. Lead the way, Eliza sighed. But as she passed Davis, she never saw the look he gave her. He didn't look at her like an inconvenience. He didn't look at her like a burden. He looked at her like a man who had been starving for something and had only just realized what it was. The Obsidian Crown was about to change. And the war with Silver Creek was no longer just about territory. Now, it was personal. If you think a battlefield is chaotic, try managing breakfast for 19 werewolf pups who have never seen a buffet before. The Obsidian Crown's Great Hall was built for war councils and diplomatic feasts. Its stone floors echoed with the footsteps of executioners. Its vaulted ceilings were draped in ancient tapestries depicting legendary hunts and fallen enemies. It was not designed for oatmeal fights. 3 days had passed since the rescue. The castle staff whispered phrases like "they're recovering" and "the poor things." But recovery for werewolf children didn't mean rest. It meant energy. Endless, explosive energy. Eliza stood at the center of the chaos, a whistle borrowed from the drill sergeant hanging at her neck. She wore black cargo pants and a fitted maroon sweater provided by the head housekeeper, practical, durable, and unassuming. She looked nothing like a rejected Omega anymore. She looked like a commander. Timothy, Eliza said calmly, her voice cutting clean through the room without ever rising, put the spoon down. A clatter. Immediate compliance. Leo, she continued, already turning, eat your protein or your leg won't heal. He groaned, but obeyed. And twins, she added, sharp-eyed, if either of you shift at the table, there will be no dessert. The twins froze mid-transition, fur already sprouting, then snapped back into human form, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Silence settled over the hall. Watching from the balcony above were King Davis and his beta, Silas, a scarred giant with arms crossed tight over his chest. I've seen her command that room better than you command legions, Silas muttered. The staff's terrified of her. The head chef actually asked permission to change the menu. Davis didn't laugh. He gripped the railing instead, his eyes locked on Eliza below. For 3 days, he had watched her work. She slept no more than 4 hours a night. She changed bandages with steady hands. She calmed night terrors. She separated fights before they escalated. And not once, not a single time, had she asked for anything in return. No jewels. No better room. Not even gratitude. She was rejected? Davis asked quietly. Silas nodded. Alpha Roar said she was weak. Submissive. A waste of resources. Davis's lip curled in open disgust. Roar is a fool, he said. That woman is made of steel. The heavy oak doors creaked open. The silence that followed wasn't the good kind. 5 high-ranking female wolves entered the hall, their presence sharp and deliberate. Obsidian-crowned socialites. Aristocrats. Women who had never known hunger, fear, or loss. At their center walked Lydia, the daughter of a powerful council member. Draped in silk worth more than Eliza had earned in her entire life, Lydia surveyed the children with thinly veiled contempt. Like pests. She stopped in front of Eliza and wrinkled her nose. So, Lydia sneered, her voice echoing through the hall, you're the stray? She gestured dismissively around them. The king is too polite to say it, but you're turning his ancest. Ral home into a kennel. These things smell like wet dog and poverty. Eliza stilled. She wiped her hands on a napkin. Slowly. Then she turned. She was shorter than Lydia by inches, but she didn't retreat. She didn't flinch. These things, Eliza said evenly, are children. She met Lydia's gaze without blinking. And they smell like survival. A pause. I wouldn't expect you to recognize that scent, Eliza continued calmly. It smells like work. Lydia bristled. Excuse me? I am the daughter of. I don't care who you are, Eliza cut in, stepping closer. Her Omega wolf, normally quiet, normally submissive, rose sharp and protective beneath her skin. You are frightening the 3-year-olds, Eliza said flatly. Get out. Lydia laughed, a high, cruel sound. You can't order me. You have no rank. You're a rejected nobody. Her eyes flashed orange. I could crush you with one hand. She raised her arm. Claws extended. Eliza didn't move. She didn't brace. She didn't blink. The strike never landed. A black blur vaulted over the balcony railing, dropping 20 feet to the stone floor with a thunderous impact that rattled silverware and froze every heart in the room. King Davis rose from his crouch between Eliza and Lydia. He didn't roar. He didn't need to. The pressure of his alpha aura slammed into the hall like a physical force. Wolves bowed instinctively. Chins dropped. Knees buckled. Lydia collapsed, gasping. My king, she was disrespectful. She is my guest, Davis said quietly. His voice vibrated through Eliza's chest. And you raised a claw against the woman who saved my nephew. The hall went dead silent. The truth about Leo, kept secret until now, hung heavy in the air. Davis turned briefly to Eliza, scanning her for injuries. Satisfied, he faced Lydia again. Leave, he said softly. And if you ever address her with anything less than the respect owed a high warrior, you will be exiled. Lydia fled. Her entourage scrambled after her. Only then did Eliza release the breath she'd been holding. She looked up at Davis towering over her. Thank you, she whispered. But I had it handled. I know, Davis murmured. That's what scares me. He reached out, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered at her jaw. The contact sent a shock through Eliza so intense she nearly dropped her whistle. I have a meeting with the council, Davis said quietly, pulling back, regarding the legal status of the children. Eliza hesitated, her voice barely steady. I want you there, even if I'm just a nurse. No, Davis said firmly, already turning away. Then he stopped, glancing back over his shoulder. You're the only living witness to the crimes of Silver Creek. And Elizabeth, his gaze swept over her, thoughtful, calculating, we're black. It unsettles them. He walked off before she could respond. Eliza lifted her hand to her cheek, touching the place where his fingers had brushed her skin moments earlier. Her wolf was practically dancing, thrilled by his defense, by his certainty. But her mind was racing in the opposite direction, fast, sharp, and afraid. Davis might stand between her and the world, but Grayson would never let this go. The Silver Creek Alpha didn't see people as people. He saw assets. Property. Inventory. And he had just lost 19 pieces of it. He was coming. Eliza felt it deep in her bones. The fragile peace lasted exactly 48 hours. It didn't break with an invasion or an attack, but with the quiet arrival of a courier. At dawn, a black sedan rolled up to the gates of the Obsidian Crown. The man who stepped out wore a crisp gray suit and an expression carved from stone. A briefcase was handcuffed to his wrist. Inside the infirmary, Eliza was crouched beside Leo, carefully examining his injured foot, when Silas appeared in the doorway. War room. Now, he said. His grim expression told her everything. She followed him through the winding stone corridors, her heartbeat growing louder with every step. When the heavy doors opened, the tension inside the war room was suffocating. Davis sat at the head of a massive obsidian table. Along both sides were his 12 advisors, generals, lawyers, elders, silent and sharp-eyed. In the center of the table lay a single document. Heavy cream paper. Official lettering. And the unmistakable wax seal of the High Werewolf Tribunal. Sit, Davis ordered gently, nodding to the empty chair at his right. Whispers rippled through the room. An Omega sitting beside the king? Unheard of. One glance from Davis shut them all up. Eliza leaned forward. What is it? Her throat tightened. A subpoena? And a reclamation order, Davis said, jaw clenched as he slid the paper toward her. Eliza scanned the dense legal language, her stomach sinking with every line. Plaintiff, Alpha Grayson Roque, Silver Creek Pack. Defendant, King Davis Sterling, Obsidian Crown Pack. Claims, unlawful abduction of pack miners. Theft of pack resources. 1 Ford Transit van. Violation of Border Treaty, Article 12. He's suing you? Eliza breathed. He tried to kill them. He claims, one of the lawyers interjected, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses, that the Cole order was a forgery created by you. That you suffered a psychotic break after your rejection. Kidnapped the children, and fled. Another advisor continued coldly, he's presenting himself as a grieving alpha trying to recover his stolen pups. That's a lie, Eliza snapped, slamming her palm against the table. I saw the original order. I watched Tasha sign it. The copy you brought was destroyed, Davis said quietly. Burned. Silence fell. It's your word against an alpha's, he continued. And without physical evidence, the tribunal recognizes the children as belonging to the pack of their birth. Eliza swallowed hard. So what does this mean? Davis stood, pacing slowly. We've been summoned to a neutral ground hearing. Tomorrow night. The Aurora Hotel, in the city. Her blood ran cold. Grayson will be there. The High Justicar will preside. Davis stopped and looked straight at her. If we lose, the enforcers will return the children to Silver Creek immediately. And me? Eliza whispered. You'll be handed over to Grayson, Davis said. For sentencing. As a traitor. The room tilted. Going back meant death. Worse, it meant the children wouldn't survive. I won't let them take them, Eliza said, her voice shaking. Neither will I, Davis replied without hesitation. But if I attack Silver Creek without tribunal sanction, the other 6 kingdoms will turn on us. We have to win this legally. How? She asked. If he destroyed the evidence, Davis said slowly, we make him admit it. Eliza's thoughts sharpened. Grayson is arrogant. He's cruel. But he's not stupid. He won't confess in front of a judge. Davis's eyes darkened. No, he agreed. But maybe, in front of the woman he believes belongs to him. He leaned closer. You know him, Elizabeth. His ego. His triggers. He hates being ignored, she said instantly. And he hates losing control. A feral smile curved Davis's mouth. Exactly. Tomorrow night, he said, we don't walk in as a king and a refugee. Eliza frowned. Then as what? As a couple. She blinked. What? Under tribunal law, Davis explained calmly, a mated pair shares legal liability. If I claim you as my mate, my chosen Luna, your actions become mine. They can't extradite you without declaring war on me. But we're not mates, Eliza stammered, heat rushing to her face. Grayson doesn't know that, Davis said. We walk in. We make him jealous. Angry. Unstable. We push until he slips and admits the coal was real. You want me to pretend to be the queen of the obsidian crown? Eliza asked. Davis, I'm a nurse from nowhere. I don't know how to be a queen. Davis stepped closer and took her hand, pulling her gently to her feet. His voice softened. You led 19 children through hell and kept them alive, he said. You stood up to Lydia without flinching. You've already done harder things than wearing a crown. He lifted her knuckles, pressing a light kiss against them. Trust me, Elizabeth, he murmured. Tomorrow night, we break him. The Aurora Hotel rose like a monument of glass and light in downtown Anchorage. Neutral ground. The ballroom had been cleared, transformed into a tribunal chamber. At the center sat the High Justicar, ancient, white-eyed, unmoving, flanked by 3 scribes. To the left stood the Silver Creek delegation. Grayson Roque was immaculate in a tailored black suit. Tasha stood beside him in a tight red dress, lips curled in a smug smile. 4 enforcers loomed behind them. When the doors opened for the obsidian crown, Grayson straightened his tie, expecting a broken Omega in chains. What he saw instead made him freeze. Eliza stepped inside wearing midnight blue velvet, the gown hugging every curve, a daring slit revealing her thigh. Her hair, usually twisted into a careless bun, fell in glossy waves down her back. And she did not look afraid. Not even a little. The moment she entered the room, everything changed. Around her neck rested the obsidian pendant, dark, ancient, unmistakable. A relic so rare it was reserved only for the queens of the North. But it wasn't a jewel. Breathe that froze Grayson in place. It was her. She didn't shuffle. She didn't hesitate. She walked with her chin lifted, shoulders squared, every step deliberate. Her hand rested confidently on the arm of the Alpha King himself. Davis. He moved beside her in a tailored tuxedo that radiated authority, power rolling off him without effort. He leaned down, murmured something in her ear, and she laughed. Not a polite laugh. Not a forced one. A real laugh. Warm. Throaty. Alive. Grayson had never heard that sound come from her. His face darkened, color rushing up his neck until it turned a deep, furious purple. What is this? He snarled, stepping forward and completely forgetting protocol. Why is the prisoner wearing jewels? Davis stopped walking. He turned slowly, studying Grayson with mild, almost bored amusement. Prisoner? Davis echoed calmly. I think you're confused, Ro. Then he smiled. Allow me to introduce my fiancée. The room collapsed into silence. Even the high Justicar paused, lifting his head from his notes. Fiancée? Tasha screeched, her voice sharp with disbelief. She's a rejected Omega. She's trash. The air dropped 10 degrees. Davis's expression didn't change, but his voice did. It lowered, thick with threat. Careful, he said quietly. Insult my future wife again, and I will rip your tongue out right here. A pause. Neutral ground or not. Eliza finally turned her gaze to Grayson. She didn't look down. She met his eyes, steady and unflinching. Hello, Grayson, she said coolly. You look tired. Being a murderer must be exhausting. I didn't murder anyone. Grayson shouted, his control unraveling instantly. I was managing my pack. You stole my property. The children are not property, the Justicar said flatly, his voice dry as parchment. Alpha Roar, he continued, you stated in your deposition that the children were beloved members of the pack, taken in the night. Grayson swallowed hard, sweat beating at his temple. They were replanning a feast for them. A feast? Eliza tilted her head, one eyebrow lifting. Is that why you cut the heating to the orphanage 3 days before I left? To prepare them for the feast? Is that why you signed the order authorizing lethal injection? She pressed, stepping closer. She could smell him now. Fear. Cheap cologne. Panic. I remember the code, Grayson, she said softly. Order 66B. Resource termination. It was a difficult winter. Grayson snapped. We had to make choices. So, Davis interjected smoothly, you admit a choice was made to end lives. Grayson exploded. I admit I am the alpha, he roared, eyes flashing red. And I have the right to cull the weak from my pack. Those runts were useless. They were eating food my warriors needed. Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. Pens scratched frantically as scribes wrote. The Justicar slowly set his pen down. Grayson froze. Too late, he realized what he'd said. I meant. You meant that you ordered the deaths of 19 children because they were useless, the Justicar said, rising to his feet. Admission noted. Davis smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Motion to dismiss the claim of abduction, Davis said calmly. Ms. O'Donnell acted under the Good Samaritan Clause of the Great Treaty, protecting minors from immediate lethal threat. Motion granted, the Justicar declared, slamming his gavel. The children remain under the custody of the Obsidian Crown pending full investigation into Silver Creek's leadership. Grayson looked like he was going to vomit. Tasha stood frozen, pale as bone. You can't do this, Grayson hissed, turning on Eliza. You belong to me. The bond, I rejected you, but I never severed it. You're still mine. He lunged. Time slowed. Driven by humiliation and madness, Grayson reached for Eliza's arm, trying to drag her away. He never touched her. Davis moved faster than sight. His hand closed around Grayson's throat, lifting him clear off the floor. Touch her. Davis whispered into Grayson's choking face, and I will burn Silver Creek to the ground and salt the earth. He threw Grayson backward. The Alpha crashed into a table of hors d'oeuvres, dishes shattering around him. We're done here, Davis said, calmly adjusting his cuffs. He offered Eliza his arm. Shall we go home, my love? Her heart thundered as she took it. They walked out of the ballroom, leaving Grayson roaring in the wreckage of his own ego. Inside the elevator, the adrenaline began to fade. Davis hadn't let go of her hand. And the way he'd said my love, it hadn't felt like acting. You were amazing, Davis said softly as the doors slid shut. We won, Eliza breathed, leaning against the wall. They're safe for now, Davis replied. Then his face hardened. But Grayson is cornered. And a cornered wolf doesn't use lawyers. He met her gaze. He'll use blood. Then we'll be ready, Eliza said, and surprised herself with how much she meant it. Davis steadied her, something unspoken passing between them. Eliza, back there. When I said you were my fiancée. I know, she interrupted quickly, looking down. It was a tactic. Good strategy. No, Davis said. He stepped closer, boxing her in without touching her. His warmth surrounded her completely. It started that way, he admitted. But when I saw you wearing my family's pendant, when I watched you destroy him with nothing but your words. He leaned in, his lips brushing her ear. I realized I wasn't pretending. Ding. The elevator doors opened. Davis stepped back, his mask of composure snapping into place. Come. The car is waiting. Eliza followed, her legs shaking more now than they ever had in front of the high Justicar. The war with Silver Creek had just begun. And the war for her heart? That one was already lost. The snow didn't stop falling for 3 weeks. 6 feet of powder buried the obsidian crown, cutting the castle off from the world. Perfect conditions for a siege, if you were insane enough to. Attack an Alpha King on his own mountain. Grayson Rock was exactly that insane. It was Christmas Eve. 1 month since Eliza had dragged a sled across the ice. The castle glowed with warmth. Holly and silver bells lined the great hall. The 19 children, healthy now, stronger, laughing, raced around the Christmas tree, chasing Silas through the branches. Eliza sat by the fire, smiling softly as Leo tried to teach Davis how to unwrap a gift without shredding it. And for the first time in a long time, peace felt real. It looked like safety. It sounded like calm. It felt like home. And every bit of it was a lie. Eliza sensed the danger before it announced itself. Not a smell. Not a sound. A vibration, so faint most would have ignored it, rippled through the floorboards beneath her feet, like the building itself had flinched. Davis, she whispered. His head snapped up instantly, eyes blown wide. The perimeter senses just died, the message barely finished forming in his mind before the stained glass window high above the hall detonated inward. Colored shards rained down as thick ropes unfurled from the ceiling. Dark figures in white tactical camouflage dropped fast, boots slamming onto banquet tables, silver weapons flashing under the chandeliers. Protect the pups! Eliza screamed. She launched herself over the coffee table, throwing her body over Leo and the twins as the hall erupted into chaos. Chairs toppled. Glass shattered. Children screamed. The obsidian guards moved as one, colliding with the intruders in a blur of claws and steel. These weren't ordinary Silver Creek warriors. These were mercenaries, rogues who sold their loyalty for blood. Davis didn't hesitate. He roared mid-stride, his body shifting in midair, flesh and bone reshaping violently into a massive black wolf. He landed on a mercenary already firing toward the children and tore out the man's throat in a single savage motion. Get them to the safe room. His voice thundered through Eliza's mind. Now. Go. Eliza grabbed Leo with one arm and scooped up the toddler Sam with the other. Everyone with me, she shouted. Run. 19 terrified children poured after her as she sprinted toward the kitchen service entrance, the only route to the underground bunker. Behind them, the hall filled with the sickening crack of breaking bones and the sharp, deafening stutter of gunfire. They burst into the kitchen. And stopped. The exit was blocked. Tasha stood there, relaxed, holding a serrated hunting knife like it was an accessory. The red dress she'd worn earlier was gone, replaced by fitted combat gear. Behind her loomed 2 massive rogue wolves, muscles coiled, eyes locked on the children. Going somewhere, Nanny? Tasha smirked. Eliza shoved the children behind a heavy steel prep table. Her eyes scanned the room, knives, pans, utensils. Nothing that could stop 2 wolves and a trained killer. "Where is Grayson?" Eliza demanded, backing away slowly. Tasha laughed and stepped forward. "Busy keeping your boyfriend occupied." Her smile sharpened. "Grayson doesn't want the brats back, Eliza. He finally realized they're a liability." Her gaze turned cold. "He sent me to clean up the mess." She flicked her fingers at the rogues. "Kill the kids. Leave the Omega for me. I want to take my time." The wolves lunged. Eliza screamed, but not in fear. Fire detonated inside her chest. Searing heat tore through her marrow, flooded her veins, burned like liquid lightning. It was the same warmth she'd once felt on the ice, only now it was 1,000 times stronger. For years, the Silver Creek Pack doctor had given her pills for her anemia. For years, she had felt weak, small, submissive. She hadn't taken them in 30 days. The suppressants were gone. And Elizabeth O'Connell was not an Omega. As the first rogue leapt over the table, jaws snapping toward little Leo, Eliza didn't shrink. She pushed. Bones rearranged with a sound like a gunshot. Her body expanded violently, growing, reshaping. Exploding with power. Fur tore through her skin, not brown, but blinding white. Her shoulders widened. Her claws lengthened into curved sides. When she landed on 4 paws, she stood nearly as tall as Davis. A white northern guardian. An ancient bloodline believed extinct, bred to protect royalty. The rogue faltered midair, confusion flashing across his face at the sudden presence of an apex predator. Eliza didn't hesitate. Her jaws closed around his neck. The crunch was final. She hurled the 300-pound body across the kitchen like it weighed nothing. The second rogue whimpered and tried to retreat. Too late. One swipe shattered his ribs and sent him crashing into the industrial stoves. Silence fell. Tasha stood frozen, knife trembling in her hand, staring up at the massive white wolf now standing between her and the children. What are you?" she whispered. Eliza snarled. The sound rattled pots from the ceiling. She stepped forward, teeth stained with blood. Tasha dropped the knife and scrambled backward, tripping over herself. "Eliza, please. I was just following orders. Grayson made me." Eliza didn't attack. She didn't need to. Her low, vibrating growl promised death if Tasha ever moved again. The kitchen doors burst open. Davis stood there, drenched in gore, chest heaving as he scanned the room. His eyes moved from the dead rogues, to the cowering Tasha. And finally to the white wolf guarding the silent, shell-shocked children. He shifted back to human without a thought, bare skin forgotten. "Eliza," he breathed. The adrenaline faded. Eliza stepped back and let the shift roll away. She collapsed onto the cold tile, naked and shaking, exhaustion crashing down all at once. Davis was there instantly, wrapping his cloak around her, pulling her tight. "You're a guardian," he whispered, stunned. "Roar drugged you. He suppressed you because he knew you were stronger than him." Eliza looked up weakly. "Is Grayson dead?" No. Davis's jaw hardened. He felt. "Your shift and ran. He's heading for the cliffs." She tried to stand. "We finished this." "I will," Davis said. No. Eliza grabbed his arm, her eyes burning gold. "We do it together." Outside, the storm raged, snow blinding, wind screaming. But wolves don't need sight to hunt. Grayson Rock staggered through the drifts near the northern ridge, blood soaking his side, his expensive suit frozen stiff. Terror drove him forward. He'd felt the power surge from the castle, the unmistakable awakening of a guardian. He'd known Eliza's grandmother was from the north. He'd just thought the bloodline had died. For years, he'd kept Eliza sedated. Told her she was sick. Weak. Built her a cage of lies. And now the beast was free. Grayson. The voice cut through the wind. He spun, yanking a silver-plated pistol free. Two figures emerged from the whiteout, Davis, dark as death itself, and Eliza cloaked in fur, walking with a predator's calm. "Stay back!" Grayson screamed, raising the gun. The gun was still raised. "I'll shoot her. I swear I will. You can try me." Davis didn't slow down. He didn't raise his voice. He just kept walking forward, calm as falling snow, as if the threat meant nothing at all. Eliza turned her head slightly, her expression steady, her voice almost painfully composed. "Why, Grayson?" she asked. "Why all the lies? Why the cull?" For a moment, the wind was the only sound. Then Grayson laughed, sharp, bitter, unhinged. "Because of power," he snapped, spitting the word as he staggered closer to the edge of the cliff. "Everything is about resources. Survival. I needed a strong pack to withstand the economy. I couldn't afford dead weight." His eyes flicked to Eliza, burning. "And you," he sneered. "I couldn't have a wife who was stronger than me. That's unnatural." Eliza didn't raise her voice. She didn't step back. "Weakness," she said quietly, "is being afraid of strength in others." Her words landed harder than any blow. "You aren't an alpha, Grayson," she countered. "Nude. You're a coward hiding behind a title." Grayson snarled and pulled the trigger. The gunshot cracked through the frozen air. Bang. Eliza didn't flinch. In a blur of motion, too fast, too precise, she shifted her weight and stepped aside. The bullet sliced through empty space where she had been standing a heartbeat earlier. Guardian instincts surged through her veins, ancient and unstoppable. Before Grayson could fire again, Davis moved. But he didn't strike. He simply stepped forward and stopped blocking Grayson's path to the land, forcing him back instead, trapping him against the sheer, endless drop behind him. Snow crunched beneath Grayson's boots as he froze. "You have two choices, Roar," Davis said evenly. "Surrender and face the tribunal for treason and attempted regicide, or—" He gestured calmly toward the abyss. Grayson's breath hitched. He looked back. 1,000 feet below, the frozen river twisted through white darkness. Then he looked at Eliza. The woman he had rejected. The woman he had tried to erase. The woman standing before him now, not with hatred, but with pity. That pity shattered him. "I am the Alpha!" Grayson screamed. In a final, desperate act, he raised the gun to his own temple. "Don't!" Eliza shouted, lunging forward. But it was too late. Grayson's foot slipped on the ice. His balance shifted. His eyes went wide with realization. The gun jerked upward, firing uselessly into the sky as he flailed. And then, he was gone. No scream. Only the howl of the wind. And then, nothing. Eliza stood at the edge of the cliff, staring down into the swirling white void below. Snow whipped across her face, tangling in her hair. The cold bit deep, but the nightmare of Silver Creek was finally over. A hand rested gently on her shoulder. Davis turned her toward him. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. Eliza swallowed. I don't know," she admitted. "I feel different. Like I'm finally awake." Davis cupped her face, snow clinging to his lashes. "You are the most magnificent thing I have ever seen." Then, he dropped to one knee. "Eliza, Davis," she gasped. "The snow is freezing. Get up." "Not yet," he said with a faint smile. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a ring, not a diamond, but a band of black obsidian, and laid with a raw vein of white gold. "This ring," he said quietly, "belonged to the first queen of the Obsidian Crown. Legend says it can only be worn by a woman who has walked through death and returned." He looked up at her, completely unguarded. "I don't want a political alliance. I don't want a fake fiancé to fool a tribunal. I want you. The nurse who saves runts." The warrior who drags sleds. The guardian who protects my home. Tears pricked Eliza's eyes, freezing as they fell. Elizabeth O'Connell, Davis said, his voice rough with emotion. Will you be my mate, my Luna, my queen? Eliza looked at the man who had given her shelter when she was nothing. She glanced back toward the castle, where 19 children were waiting for her. She looked at the ring. Yes, she whispered. Then louder, stronger. Yes. Davis rose and slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. He pulled her into a kiss so fierce it felt like it melted the snow around them. From the castle, a howl rose into the night. Silas. Then another, Leo's clumsy puppy Yip. Then 19 tiny howls joined together, a chorus of misfits calling their parents home. Davis rested his forehead against hers. Let's go home, he said. The kids are waiting for bedtime stories. Eliza smiled, seeing her glowing white wolf reflected in his eyes. Tonight, she said, taking his hand, we skip the fairy tales. We tell them a true story. About what? About a sled, and the 19 heartbeats that saved a kingdom. They walked back toward the lights of the obsidian crown, leaving the darkness buried beneath the snow forever. And that is the incredible true story of Elizabeth O'Connell. From a rejected Omega left to die in the frozen wasteland. S. To the savior of the 19. To the guardian queen of the North. It's a reminder that what society calls weakness, compassion, empathy, refusing to leave anyone behind, may actually be the greatest strength of all. Grayson Rock believed power came from culling the weak. He died alone in the cold. Eliza believed power came from protecting the vulnerable. She gained a crown, a king, and a family of 19. History remembers the Obsidian Pack as the strongest in the world, not because of their claws, but because they were the only pack that refused to leave a single wolf behind. And it all started with one nurse, who wouldn't take no for an answer. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories. What do you think? Was Grayson's fate deserved? Or was it too easy? And would you cross the Deadlands for 19 strangers? Let me know in the comments. Type Team Eliza if you're on her side. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell, because next week's saga is already waiting.